Iron Man 2! Chris, since you're the guest, would you like to tell us what the synopsis is?
Okay, Iron Man 2 follows Tony Stark, aka the superhero Iron Man, and he's driven to self-destruction by his failing health, while people from his company's past come to destroy him.
This film is considered one of the worst of the MCU. Not that it's bad, but it's more disappointing. But unpopular opinion time, I think it's better than the first one.
This film for me was where Marvel really had to think about what their future is going to be. Iron Man 1 was a success, and if I think, right, okay, we're going to do the Avengers now, we set the end credits, we need to set this up. And it's where Iron Man 2, I think, has its weakest points. It is a big setup for the next installments. But it still has lots of great things about it. Yeah, it is very much like the first Iron Man, but I would say it isn't as exciting, but it has great scenes still between Pepper Potts and Tony Stark, which are the scenes I always remember when I think of an Iron Man movie.
I think the thing that I like about this is, I mentioned in the first review that I liked the first film, but I felt like the action was kind of weak. But this feels like it has the action that the first film should have had. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a lot more entertaining in that regard.
I was just saying that I think this film did have a bigger budget than the first one, because Iron Man was Marvel Studios' first attempt at doing a big cinematic universe. And you know, it's like for studios, if things are going to fail, or they're not too confident about it, they will not obviously give it a huge budget. But obviously did, so they could have more of the action sequences that were a bit absent in the first film.
There's like, I mean, like, a lot of people like criticize the film because the fights against Whiplash were pretty short.
Yeah, like the final showdown.
Yeah, especially the final showdown. But like, what I liked about that scene was like, it wasn't just the final showdown. There was like an entire chase scene leading up to that, like flying through the expo, and then them fighting together with War Machine against giant waves of robots, and then the final showdown. So it felt like, rather than the first one, which was just a brawl between two characters, this was more of a set piece.
Well, yeah, the first Iron Man film, that big showdown reminded me of Michael Bay's Transformers. And that's not a compliment, by the way. It just felt like, you know, robots hitting each other, bang, bang, and that for me was the weakest part of the film.
I felt like giving the Ironmonger robot testicles was, you know, a bit of a step too far, and then like the racist Iron Man robots came in and they started saying things. It just got very awkward.
Well, and also Tony Stark, you know, riding on the girl's bike at some point. It was a bit corny.
It was going too far, and then Howard Stark comes out and he's like high on weed brownies. We need to talk about Transformers at some point.
Yes, we got it.
Okay, so Stark is once played by Robert Downey Jr., pretty much cementing this portrayal of the character. Like, his wit and the over-top playboy antics are again the big draw of the film. The focus this time is kind of more on his self-destructive tendencies and working through his issues with his father. So they're not treading old ground with this, because like the first time was kind of acknowledging like what he was doing as a businessman, like his lack of attention and like how his company was basically hijacked by somebody. This time's kind of getting more to the core of his person and like his own problems. It's about as close as we're going to get to Demon in a Bottle.
Yeah, but when you first see him first time, you can tell like the Iron Man, the fact that he's come out as Iron Man, that's really got to his head. You can tell that his ego has transformed into something else. You know, when he's saying, "Oh, it's good to be back. Hello, everyone," and I really like the scenes when it's just Tony Stark, because I think with Iron Man it's more interesting when because Tony Stark. I think that's why people love this character so much, because Robert Downey Jr. plays Tony Stark so well, and he has so much personalities, but he's got all these flaws as well. And I do love the backstory you find out about his father. I felt like that was not shoehorned in for Captain America. I felt like it came really naturally. Yeah,
I was like, there's something about this, like, I like that there's like an arc going for all three films, even though they're kind of not really connected in terms of like an ongoing story. But you can see the progression of his character, kind of like rebuilding himself as Iron Man, and then kind of like slowly being killed by the suit, and then that kind of moves on to the third film where like he kind of has to fight without the suit.
Well, the third one, we'll talk about that afterwards, but the third one does has a beautiful connection with Avengers, which we'll talk about later on. But yeah, I see what you mean. Each film does not seem like we're seeing the same character. We're seeing a more developed character from each one as well.
Yeah, because like, kind of skipping ahead to Captain Marvel, this felt like very similar to Iron Man in a lot of regards, in like the tone and the action. But that one didn't have like the same strong protagonist, so that's why I feel like that didn't resonate as well. as these films do, even though they probably more flawed than Captain Marvel, I'd say. But it's got that stronger character, so there's a lot more of an anchor to kind of ground people to it.
Yeah, I can see what you mean, but it does share some... With Captain Marvel, there was a lot of exposition going on, and I felt like Iron Man 2 also had that as well. A lot of explaining for the next few films.
You gotta set things up.
The
comedy is, once again, really spot on. It's kind of backed up by the supporting cast. Pepper Potts, played by Gwyneth Paltrow, she's a lot more over-the-top reactions to Tony this time. You can tell that her patience with his bullshit's just kind of starting to wear a bit thin. Happy Hogan, who was played by director Jon Favreau, he's got like a lot more comedy in this because he was kind of a background element in the first one.
Yeah, I forgot completely that he was in the first one. But yeah, he has more to do in this one, and we'll talk a bit more about him afterwards when we talk about another character. But yeah, I think whenever I watch these scenes between Gwyneth Paltrow and Tony Stark, it feels like there's no script in front of them. It feels like they were given the freedom to just ad-lib. It just comes across really naturally, and the chemistry between them is spot on. And the comedy does really work. You never feel like it's getting a bit too silly. There's a lovely moment where he's having a bit of an argument with Pepper Potts, and there's just this moving on in a way. And he goes, sorry, can I just move this please? It's really annoying.
It's like, no.
Yeah, that's what I like about Pepper Potts as well. I mean, she was like this in the first one, but I think she's a lot more assertive of Tony in this one. Like, she's not going to put up with the way he speaks to her and all that. And I really like that in the film, because Tony Stark is very much like, he will talk the talk, and he will talk down to you if he wants to. But Pepper Potts, that character, says, no, you can't speak to me that way, you know.
And Sam Rockwell's character, Justin Hammer, who's playing the other villain in this, he feels like he's much more of a presence and much more of a comedic one. Yeah. And like just how he's trying to play like this parody of Tony Stark.
Yeah,
but he's like second-rate Tony Stark.
You can tell he's that geeky guy who wants to be Tony Stark. I mean, he'll dress like him, try to be suave and cool. But you can tell it's not working at the same time. I mean, I really like Sam Rockwell as well. I think he's a very underrated actor. So it was really good to see him playing a villain in this. I just feel like I wish I could have a bit... I just feel like I always forget what he did in this film. And it's a shame, really. Cause
he entertained me.
He entertained, but I still think he was a weak villain. This is one of the points I want to get to. I think Iron Man 2 does suffer from having weak villains, but at the same time, that's not always... You know, because you have some weak villains does not mean it's a bad superhero film. I think the focus... Not every superhero film doesn't focus on villains. Focus on the hero. And, you know, what difficulties they go through when the villains are there as obstacles. I think that's what it was for this film.
Yeah, it feels like that's what the MCU films do so well, is that they focus on the hero as the protagonist. A lot of times the antagonist feels like they're there because the hero's got to have a villain to fight.
Yeah, like an obstacle to get through, yeah.
Yeah, so the villains usually aren't characters in of themselves. So the other villain is Ivan Vanko, aka Whiplash, played by Mickey Rourke, who's got like this really great look to him, and he's got a very sympathetic backstory that we see early on. But we really need to see more of him. And you know, the third villain, which here's the thing I've been realizing: the biggest villain in the MCU is Tony Stark.
He is, yeah.
Like so many of his, like pretty much every villain, including Captain America, was created by his decisions.
Look at Age of Ultron. I mean, that's the biggest one. And then Civil War. He's kind of the villain if you think about it.
At the same time, like, I do appreciate that he'll make these mistakes, but then he'll fix them.
Yes.
Like, his whole thing is accountability. It feels like it was either Hank Pym or Mr. Fantastic in the comics who was always creating all these problems, like the Marvel Zombies thing where it's created by Mr. Fantastic, like messing around with dimensions.
Yeah, and Hank Pym did Ultron.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but obviously, well, I can't have Mr. Fantastic.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Give him a bit of time. I feel like both villains, though, they kind of serve as metaphors, but this time it's like kind of people that Tony's screwed over. It's kind of like the physical representation of his past. So Vanko is kind of like what his company's done, because he was basically destroyed by Tony's father. His father was.
Yes.
This is kind of like a lamer version of Ivan Drago from Creed 2, if you will. And Justin Hammer's someone who's like, he's a villain, but he's not like out to take over the world. He's just out to beat Tony Stark in his own game. And it was kind of created by him putting him down and like making him feel second rate. But like you said, I don't feel like that makes it a bad film. I don't really think these are bad villains. I think it's more like functional villains is how I describe them.
I think they're villains who have good motives, but I don't think that they are, well, like, like Whiplash. I don't feel like his backstory was explored a lot. It was, in the beginning, I thought it was a beautiful setup, and then it kind of lost it. It was more, where's my birdie? My birdie, then, yeah.
I want my birdie.
That's it, yes.
I love the way he says bird.
Yeah. Mickey Rourke's really good. I mean, you don't see him much, really. No. He's quite an underrated actor, but yeah, he's not a big fan of comic books. He said how much he hates Spider-Man. So it was really good the fact that he
I will destroy Spider-Man and get the back of my bird.
But it's good to see him like putting that much effort into something that he's not too fond of anyway.
So a fight that I did like was the fight between Rhodey and Tony. So his best friend, James Rhodes, aka Rhodey, who becomes the superhero War Machine, this time played by Don Cheadle, because Terrence Howard got out while the beginning was good. He could see that this ship was going to sink, and he got out. It's you do you, Terrence. You do you. Like kind of in contrast to like the fight in the first film, this one felt like a much more brutal. Like you could feel the impact as these two robots were hitting each other, and I'm just a sucker for having Queen in the background.
Yeah, I like Don Cheadle as War Machine. I think he does a better job than Terrence did. I just like when you see him for the first time, when you just looked at Tony, you can tell, oh god, I really hate you sometimes. you can tell there's a bit more of a love-hate relationship, and I think him and Robert Downey Jr. work better together. I think. Yes. I
think that's what I like about War Machine. The MCU is like you can kind of. I think you can count on War Machine to have Tony's back.
Yes.
Even against himself. Like, if Tony becomes the ultimate villain of everything, you could kind of, like, count on Rhodey to be the one to ground him.
Yes.
I like that. The first one, he was kind of, like, joking a bit more with him, but this time it feels like he's got a bit more confidence and is willing to talk back to him a lot more.
Yes, he is. And there's a lovely moment as well, like, after they've saved the day, he's still in his War Machine outfit, then they say someone lines of, no, I'm keeping this, and just leaves.
So, finally, to address the big elephant in the room, I've heard people, and by people I mean Chris, complain that this film felt too much like an advert for the MCU and the Avengers than a standalone film. This is something I like to call the multiverse effect. I touched on this in Amazing Spider-Man 2, where these scenes in their isolation would be fine. Like, if this was just like an Iron Man film and like, hey, do you know what this is? Like, they show the Captain America shield, that would be like, huh, I get that reference kind of thing.
Yeah.
But because we know what they're doing, it gives it a different connotation. It's like, do you know what this is? The future!
Yeah.
It's like...
And, well, for me, the biggest problem was when Nick Fury comes into it. I think that when they start talking about the Avengers, nothing to do with what's going on in the story. That, for me, is where the film fell to a halt. Where everything just stopped. No, I liked the Nick Fury scene. It reminded me a bit of Pulp Fiction. I think they did it on purpose. But it just felt like, just everything was stuck. Stop! Remember, Avengers! Avengers is coming soon. It's on its way.
I was okay with it because it kind of like... It felt like it needed Nick Fury to kind of come in and give him the kick in the ass because nobody else was talking to Tony at this point.
Yeah.
Everyone's mad at him. Rhodey's gone off with the suit. Pepper and Happy don't want anything to do with him. They're just kind of letting him destroy himself. He kind of needed this kind of neutral party who has an interest in getting him back on track.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. Oh, I want to say as well, we not mentioned someone who I fell in love with after seeing her in this film, Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow. I've never fallen in love with a character before until I saw her. It was just, I love this character. That fight scene in the corridor. This is where Happy's involved as well. She is taking down all these guards. She's taking out, basically just taking them down as if they're weak pieces of wood. And Happy at the end goes, I got one!
He's just fighting one person the entire time.
He's Tony Stark's bodyguard.
Do you want me to keep this in? You want Rosie to know about this?
She knows.
She knows.
She knows.
She's seen the shrine.
She knows.
this, it felt like they got away from this. It feels like this is something that every multiverse, except for the legendary Godzilla films, feels like they had to go through to just kind of realize this doesn't work. But I feel like this is the least invasive of them. I covered in Amazing Spider-Man 2, that felt invasive.
Yes.
Like, the worst example is The Mummy, which is strange because you've had 3 failed attempts to do this. And the 4th one is the worst one, where they just stop the film entirely.
Welcome to Torchwood. I'll tell you another one as well. Fantastic.
Did they do that?
They had 4. This was their 4th movie of doing it, and again, it's a lot of exposition, setting up things for future installments that never happened. It's
we can't just have them find out soon. We have to set up the scrolls. Galactus in the background somewhere. I'm not sure what else they had the rights to, which they could have milked out of this. I mean, they already had the X-Men franchise. But no, we have to do Fantastic Four as well.
Well, they were going to set the Fantastic Four up with the X-Men. But they had no idea how it was going to work, though.
Well, they both have one thing in common, is that they have bland version of their character suits. You dress in all black? Us too!
Yeah, Fox, really? Then again, though, when they did First Class, I thought, this is like the X-Men.
Okay, in conclusion, I'm definitely in the minority, but I really think that this is worth a second chance. It's funny, it's action-packed, it's the same grit lead that you liked the first time around, so for me it's an 8 out of 10. Chris?
Yeah, I think it's a good film. But I just think there are some moments where the film falls to a halt, and I just don't think it was as entertaining or as memorable as the other Marvel films. But it was Marvel still early stages, they were trying different things out, so I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. So,
between the two of us, you could probably get a kind of a gauge on whether or not you're going to like this film, and join us when we look at Iron Man 3. The next one that's going to come out is going to be Thor, so you'll have to wait a little bit before we talk about Iron Man 3. Take care now, bye-bye then.
Hey, the Oracle of Oracle. What a pleasure, nice to see you. Larry King. Larry!
So this movie is considered one of the worst of the MCU, if not the worst.
Guys, ask, are you having clips whilst we did?
Well, right now the trailer is going to be like playing in this.
By saying, because otherwise it looks like I'm just looking at someone else. Like, okay, go on.
Well, the trick is that hopefully the video is so low resolution because we can't afford proper equipment that people won't notice that we keep constantly looking at the teleprompter. This is all going in, by the way.
Yes, okay. See, this film is pretty much has what the first did. Sorry. See, this film...
This is my opinion. I think you might be better given your opinion.
Okay. Alright. Okay.
So, ignore the rest of this. Otherwise, you're just, like, repeating back my thoughts.
Okay, so just want to say my thoughts.
I mean, you can parrot back my thoughts and I'll make you feel better about myself.
Okay.
Again, all going in the end. This is going to be this thing. It's going to be longer than the actual review.
Okay, so